Thank you for coming. As she said, I'm Alicia Kelly. I grew up right around the corner in Sapulpa, Oklahoma, but have been calling Lawrence, Kansas home for about 20 years. I studied printmaking at the University of Kansas, primarily really focusing on screen printing, but just that process-based work is what I fell in love with. A lot of the works in this show kind of allude to building materials or construction, not only in the names or my inspiration, but also how the work is created. So during this, I will talk a lot about process. That's kind of my main thing with my work process and the meditation. And a lot of this comes from the inspiration of one, my father, who is here, who a lot of my life I watched him build and renovate the house, an older house we grew up in Sapulpa, as well as making a meditation garden and the importance of really that inward thought. And so I'm thankful a lot of my family is here to be here. And so, one, it is a true honor to be here. I'm so thankful for 108. You have been so supportive. And this spot in particular, in my teens, this is where I ventured, like in this area. So it's changed quite a bit. So like to be back here and in this gallery is like a dream. There's definitely a lot of adventuring back in the day, about 20 years ago. And what an honor to have me. So thank you so much. I am going to walk around and talk about some pieces, get right into it, talking a lot about process, a lot about how things are made. And if you have questions, because I'll be going from one piece to the next, not all of them, but most of them, please feel free to ask as we're going. And so we're going to actually start with Roughly Right, which is the name of the show, which came from talking to a house contractor who is talking, there's no straight angles when you're building things, rather it be roughly right than precisely wrong, which I have been a perfectionist in my work for a long time, and maybe you still think that, but there's a lot of looseness. Some things are cut out that aren't supposed to be. I also allow things to evolve and change, and I think that strictness on myself over time, I've been personally trying to let that go down. So like letting things be loose and a little wavy is important. I always say a wavy line is more beautiful than a straight one. And so we're gonna start with Roughly Right over here. I cut a little differently than when I started. In my 20s, I was cutting on the floor. I do not do that anymore. I have a standing table and take breaks. I have to move. A lot of this work is hard on the body when you get going. You can see I wanted to take this process video, which we can look at later, so you can kind of see that there is kind of a dance with paper that happens, as well as the way I breathe or breath work. And so it's really important to, one, take care of the body as I want to continue to do this. So this piece, Roughly Right, I want to talk a little bit about how my works, how I kind of develop them. A lot of them are simple sketches, patterns you can see that I either take from nature or just derived from myself, that I'm playing around digitally and kind of sculpting how I want it to be. And so this piece, one of the newer pieces I have projected. What I do is I project the image on the back and trace it out. So there is a type of precision. And then I cut it all from the back. I cut all the pieces, and then I have to turn it around and then sculpt each piece with, I use the back of an X-Acto. And so each piece, this is all one piece of paper, nothing is glued on. When I'm cutting them, I leave about 1/4 inch to 1/8 inch of piece of paper attached. And yes, sometimes I cut through and they cut out. That's a part of it, and there's glue, and sometimes I don't glue it back and I leave that open just so you can find it. There's a few pieces in here that are sculpted that have a piece missing, so maybe you can find it in part of the I Spy. So this piece, being the title piece, is a newer piece. We'll talk a little bit about airbrushing and how I color my works and a couple other pieces, but I love this piece. It's a new pattern for me, and patterns not only help with the meditative part of like mental health when I'm doing it, when I'm cutting, I can get into a zone, as probably a lot of you know, in any creative realm, you kind of get into that zone and that flow. And there are times I'm looking down and my hand is cutting and I'm not really telling it what to do. And that's the perfect place. I could live there, don't want to live there too long. But so this piece, I just wanted to kind of talk about the just my general process. The next piece I want to talk about is this one, Ode to Bridget. This is kind of, it's obviously cut out, but a different kind of style than my typical work. It is based off of an artist, Bridget Riley, who was like the queen of optical illusion art in the 60s. And she's one of my favorite women artists. Her work vibrates. You could walk into it, a lot of paintings. You've probably seen a lot of her work and didn't know it, especially a lot of optical illusion work has been taken from her work. And that's something, as I continue my practice, I want to get more into op art type stuff that is a little bit more vibrating or moving. And so this piece is based off of one of her pieces called The Crest. So the piece was similar to this, and then I kind of made it into 4 pieces in its own design. And so the crest actually was used in the 60s as the cover of a krautrock German band called Faust. So if you ever wanted to know, you will see it on a vinyl album. And so, yes, I wanted to mention this one because it has some great shadows when you come up to it. And it is just one piece of paper cut, and there's a lot of flow and movement with it. I'm gonna move to this piece called Dancing Alone Together. This piece is really special to me. It's one of the biggest 2D pieces I've done, 2D/3D. A lot of my work really pushes that 2D part of paper into the 3D realm. And so this piece was the beginning of this type of pattern in this shape. It was the first piece I made during COVID. It's called Dancing Alone Together, so there's a sweetness with it. During that time, really focusing on how important music and art was and how that really kept us going in this lockdown. And you know, that I think of, and I had mentioned this to some friends, I think of like the music that was happening right when lockdown happened in like Italy. You'd see videos of people out on their patios playing music, and that was so important. I realized at that time how important live music is and how much I missed it, you know. And so this piece is what I would call a looser sketch piece. So on the back of this piece, I actually just drew really quick lines and then allowed myself, as I was cutting, to kind of interpret it and play around with it. I am looking at distance. I'm thinking about balance when I'm working, but I'm also just kind of allowing the piece to kind of tell me where to go and like tell me how it wants to breathe. With these sculpted pieces, I have to work with a thicker paper too, like a cotton paper. If I did it with Tyvek, which I'll talk about Tyvek, a magic material that's part of this installation, it wouldn't hold up. So it has to be thicker paper, and it also has to be in a climate-controlled room. If not, the humidity will make it droop over time. And so this piece is very special to me, and I think back to it, and I don't know, I love it. So, okay. What is that? Yeah, they're all on Stonehenge, which is a pretty reasonable cotton paper. Can get printmaking paper. I mean, that's where I fell in love with it, is studying the process-based over and over in screen printing. But like, I definitely fell in love with different types of paper. And so they can go up from like a sheet, excuse me, this size can be, in some cotton papers, $10 to $12. Stonehenge is relatively inexpensive, and so I bought a roll of it and was able to work with it. And so, yeah, great question.
How long did it take you to do this?
It probably took me, that's always a good question, a couple of months not working all the time. At the time, I had a studio in Kansas City. Living in Lawrence is about a 40-minute drive, and I had a really old car that I had to take the back road, so it took a long time to get there. And so this piece I was working on and off for about 2 months. But once I get going, like something like this, once I get going, can take an hour or two. It depends on the cutting. You know, I'm cutting it all first and then flipping it over and then sculpting. Because if I sculpt along the way, the pressure of me cutting kind of pushes down the pieces. So.
What makes this one special?
I think definitely first piece of COVID and just what was going on in such an unprecedented time, but also this pattern. So when I get obsessed with patterns, you'll see a lot of the same patterns over and over in my work, but in different balances or symmetry. And I get obsessed. I want to like learn how to make it turn a certain way, how it breathes. I want to sculpt it one way or to the next. But once it becomes really easy, I like retire the pattern. I'm done with it. You know, it might show up here and there in ways, but then it's too easy and it's not a challenge. So that's why I roughly write that first piece is kind of this newer design. It's a little harder for me. It takes me a little longer, but once I get it, this one was like a good flow. So, and I've done a lot of pieces based off this piece. So.
Question back here with the
Yeah.
exhibit that does the optical illusions. We have a book. I'm sure you've seen them. That just has patterns, you know, on the pages. But if you look at them and look through them somewhat, then there will be like a 3D image that will.
The like pop out. We were talking about this. The like magic eye.
Yeah,
I think. I mean, I remember doing those as a kid at the mall, and you're like
yeah.
trying, and I just think back to, that'd be wonderful to be able to do. Even when those were first starting to come out, how technology was not as great as it is now, and how those were made. But those are cool. I feel like you kind of go cross-eyed when you're looking at them.
I don't know if she had anything to do with that.
No, a lot of her stuff is just black and white line work, and so. Yeah, I don't know if she did, but I bet she has some inspiration with that. And color-wise, that kind of brings me into that. I did not use color for like the first 10 years of my work because I was so scared of it, which is kind of funny to say, and like what I wanted to say with it and what it meant. And so a lot of my work will kind of go back to black and white or stay within a few colors because I'm still like slowly branching out. And so. Great question, Dad. That's my dad over there.
Can you talk a little bit about the actual sculpting part?
Yeah, totally. Like just the going behind it, like when it's flat. So after I've cut each piece and it's attached. So it's like, it honestly, after I've cut it, it feels a little heavier than the paper did without the cutting. And then I have to slowly turn it over. And it is taking I use a number 11 X-Acto blade. Nothing fancy, just the ones you buy. Those work the best for me. I go through a lot of blades. And I just take the flat part of it and I just use that and kind of sculpt it like, I think we were talking like a ribbon. You know how you do that with a ribbon? But I'm sculpting it, but the weight of the paper just holds. You know, sometimes you have to put it back into place. But it just kind of holds up. Did that answer a little bit? Yeah, like it just holds, and it's just all an X-Acto.
How many blades do you go?
Depends on what I'm cutting.
Sponsorship can we get you?
X-Acto sponsored me for a short amount of time, and I got a few blades. My folks can probably say this because I feel like I'm always like, if you want to get me something, get me a 300 pack of X-Actos. But I keep them all. I have like, because definitely when I'm cutting, I could be cutting something and the tip breaks, but it's still a good blade. So I have a bucket of that. I have one that are unusable. And so I probably, this one, I mean, just as a guess, probably 40 blades. So recently, like with this bigger installation, which we'll get to, that was probably 70 or 80, depending. So just a guess. It's kind of hard because sometimes you start cutting and the tip breaks and that's what's really important right away. And I'm like, well, the blade's still good. I'm not going to get rid of it. I don't know what to do with these X-Actos. I'm still considering. I don't want to waste them. I don't want to just throw them away. So, okay, so I'm going to move on to, this one's called Race Between Remarks, and this one's called raised and removed. And so I really wanted to talk about, there's sculpting in both of them, very different kind of sculpting, but I wanted to talk about how I color, how I make the colors of my work, because when I first started looking into color, I found that I couldn't find the colors I wanted of paper, or it was very expensive, or I wanted to make stencilry with it, comes into my screen printing background using stencils. And so I self-taught I'm not that great, taught myself how to airbrush and mix colors. And so I have been airbrushing for a few years now, and I really like that. I'm not a professional at it at all, but I really like that it takes on a leathery kind of fabric quality with it, and that's really important. It does take a while to build up the layers. This one is probably 4 or 5 layers of airbrush. So I do one, let it sit, do another. Same thing with the Ode to Bridget. That's airbrush. So all of this, I airbrush it first before I cut anything. These had stencils. So these two had paper stencils where the white was. I had stenciled it out and actually started using vinyl instead of paper recently because it sticks a little bit better to the paper. And so airbrushing, another process. I love just adding more to it and what I can create and what I can say with just a little bit of color. We're definitely going to talk about the installation. I've been doing installations for about 12 years now. This work is really special. It's site specific. Will only be shown here like this. I made it specifically for this space. It's called Building Up a Home, which I would like to build my own home, or as well as work on an older one, which is probably what I grew up with, that inspiration, as well as being back in Tulsa. And this is my first solo exhibition here, and so it's really comforting to be back, and also just kind of the nostalgic memories that I've had in the past. So this specifically, this is Tyvek. Tyvek, if you don't know what it is, it's magic material. It is a building material that usually when someone is building a house or siding it, you see it and it says Tyvek DuPont, and it's like a waterproof material they put under the siding. And probably 7 or 8 years ago, I reached out to another paper artist who was doing big pieces, and I asked them, what material are you using? It's so great to reach out to people if they're available to reach back out to you and just ask what you're using. And so he told me about Tyvek, but getting it, I had to find a place that you could get it unprinted that doesn't have the words, and also this specific type. I got a whole bunch of samples, cut through them all, and this is called 1056R hard structure, if you all are interested. So they do make Tyvek suits, but that's like, have you seen those? They're like maybe hazmat or something. That's a soft structure, so it's a little softer. It's very hard to cut. It's a little harder to cut. But what's so nice about Tyvek is it's smooth to cut. It's kind of got a plastic sheen. At the front, by the way, there's my cutout, so you can take one, you can feel it, so you can kind of see how it feels. It also can get wet, and it's fine. You can, if it gets dirty, you can lightly wash it. If it gets wrinkled, you can iron it on a low setting. So there's not a preciousness to it. And I find that when I'm working with paper, it's so precious, it can rip, where this is less precious and great for installation work. And so this piece, this is the first piece I've done with vinyl, and I wanted to show you, so all these vinyl pieces in the back, there's 260 of them. I do have an automatic cutter at home that cuts vinyl, and so it is my design digitally. This is one of the only digitally cut things. And one piece, I like to show things, this is the teacher in me. One piece looked like this, so you can kind of see, it's like a big sticker, so I peel it off, and then I stuck it to the wall. But this all is cut out, but every single piece in between, I had to take an X-Acto and take out. So that's where that meditation. So each one of those was hand taken out, as well as I did have a student of mine help me with this. I needed extra hands for this. So this piece I really love. I came in with a general idea. This is one of the first times, but I also let the space, and when we were installing it, help me construct how this piece was hung. I knew generally how it was going to be hung, but I wasn't sure on how it was going to touch, how it was going to be, and it was really fun to kind of allow the piece to be created as I was working with it. It also is a really good example of a lot of my work show, it's called pareidolia, which is a word I recently heard about, which fits in with my work. It's where you take a person looks at shapes and gives it meaning, like when you're looking at clouds and you find something in the clouds or a piece of toast and you see a face in it. And a lot of my work when I've done pieces or bigger pieces, someone on the street's like, this reminds me of a chrysalis, or this reminds me of this. And that's what I want. Not everything has an exact shape for me, but more of a connection to the viewer that's looking at it. And this is a great example of that. Definitely looking at those shapes, the negative parts of it, but also the cutouts. A lot of my installations are, I would say, little spiritual based in ways, not only the meditative part, but the way I want it to be something you can walk in, an entrance, a place of contemplation, maybe a slowdown. It's a little hard to see now, but the shadows are a big part of them, and that is something I want you to take in, maybe a quiet place. So feel free to walk through it. I love that this one kind of moves as you walk and kind of allows that flow of where you've been showing behind.
When you do an installation, do you think about the shadow play while you're making it, or how you're lighting it, or is it just however happy accident it turns out?
A little bit of both. That's something as my practice goes on, I'm trying to consider a little bit more is the lighting. I'm not the best at lighting, and they had a great preparator here that was probably the best at lighting my work ever. Wonderful. But it's definitely, I'm like, okay, I want it to expand. I mean, and there's only so much sometimes that you can do, or so much wall space. And so it's a happy accident for some things, and a playfulness, experimentation. A lot of my work is playful. It's like, let's play with this. Let's experiment this. Let's see what happens when you cut and sculpt this. And I feel the same way with the lighting. And so this lighting was great. So you can see a little bit of it, but at night there's like pieces that expand on the side, which are really fun to kind of play around with. And last night watching kids kind of look at it and how is this? And like shadows can be a part of art, of course. So feeling good? Okay. I'm gonna talk about, I also, before I head out, this is my stencil. I like to show my process. You'll see it in the process video at the front. But this is the stencil that I used. I designed, and I would, with each piece, I would lay this down, take a pencil, outline it, and then cut it out. And so this is as simple as it is over and over. You can see, you're welcome to touch any of this stuff as well. It's on a tea-stained paper. This is like a paper I stained with tea and was like, here, this is a good size. That's how I work. We're going to talk about, I want to talk about, these chairs just briefly. These chairs are just fun and nostalgic. Honestly, I started this chair a few years ago working on it, and these were chairs I bought that fell apart very quickly. And I was like, they need to be repaired. In this world of us just throwing things away and getting a new one, this is an example of let's repair it and it's still good. And so they do not hold up when you sit in them. But I just feel like there's some fun. Sometimes it's just fun to make something. And I've heard a couple of people come up to me and say, oh, this brings me back to this time, or this is, and that's important. Like I want that kind of connection, or those memories that come up. So the chair repair it is. And the shadows are fun as well. That was a happy accident as well. Last thing I'm going to talk about, just really briefly, are these pieces. This is kind of a newer direction that I want to start infusing, maybe is the word I want to use, infusing in with my cutouts. This is kind of a plaster spackling that is just you get at the hardware store. And I cut a stencil. I brought the stencil so you all could see. This is a plastic stencil. It is not the most fun to cut because it's a little harder to cut through, but I wanted you all to see this is the stencil. You're welcome to feel it as well. You can see my outlines of where things are. But it is just taking the spackling plaster, putting it on paper, and then pulling it over the surface, flattening it out, and then pulling it up. It's that simple, and you can do it with a lot of things. And the paper, the thicker paper holds up really well. I did experiment with this about a year or so just to see how, if it disintegrated or how it held up, and it's been great. Colored, I actually mix airbrush ink in with the spackling and then put it on there. So this was a few of them that I put together. And I like that it's not always consistent, or it's more raised, or just that it's textural. So that is really all I have at the moment. I just wanted to hit some of the pieces that have some things to say, as well as the color and the sculpting. And if there's any questions, feel free to ask. So.
Do you ever get a piece almost done and then you cut something wrong and it screws the whole piece up?
I cut things out all the time.
And then, or do you have to start over?
No, I think at this point I've got enough dexterity in knowing where things are going to be. But I definitely cut out pieces all the time, and sometimes I'll leave them open, like dancing alone together. I'll let you know there's one piece missing. Maybe you can look for it, as I said earlier, or I'll, glue it back together on the back, and it holds up so well. But I think for me, like, no piece it doesn't ruin it. I think that's the hand quality, the handmade in it, and that craft in it. And after doing it for so long, I feel like I can cut a lot longer. When I teach a class, someone will cut for 10 minutes and they're like, I'm done. And I kind of forget that these muscles over the past 19 years have kind of firmed up. But I'm pretty good at now, like, okay, oh, not right on the line. As you can see in the process video, you'll see I won't hit those lines perfectly, but that's okay, because it's more that meditative state than the perfectionism of it.
What's your next project?
Well, currently right now, I was just talking about this, I am having a piece it's fabricated out of aluminum, a big sculpture that will be in a cancer center in Kansas City. So I'm in the design phase right now. It's been a goal of mine. In the design phase in CAD, I do not do CAD, I have a fabricator helping me. And then I have a year to get it fabricated. So that'll go up early next year. And I'm really looking forward to that. I also just recently started renting. So I work out of my house. I pretty much live in my studio, which is not always healthy. I'm just gonna give you a heads up. I work from home, it's great. I don't have a living room, that's my main studio, but I recently started renting an old garage. It's about 1,300 square feet. It's got a couple of lofts. It's beautiful, but it needs some work, some walls inside. It needs some heat and AC. And so where that building, that want to build, once it warms up, that's my next big project. So, well, thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.